Today we're going to be checking out the brand new Strymon Big Sky MX, and this is a particular pedal that I've been extremely excited to talk about. The Strymon stuff needs no introduction as some of the best kind of pedals that you can get in certainly every single department that they do. Distortions, delays, modulations, you name it, Strymon have got it covered. But one of the things I think they're most sort of well known for, and certainly one of the things that I knew them most for, was the reverbs, particularly the Big Sky being kind of known as one of the best reverb pedals that you could get, and especially with some of the sounds that you were able to get in that. It was just absolute creativity for days and just such a cool pedal that had some amazing sounds in it. So we're going to be checking out the brand new version of that, seeing what goes into it and seeing some of the new features that are built into this version. Like all of our videos, they are split up into chapters, so if you do want to check out just the sounds, do check the timeline below. And all the links for the equipment that we're using today are going to be in the description as well. So let's just dive right in, check out some of the new features. So for anyone who is familiar with Strymon products, particularly their bigger form factor of pedals, this is going to look pretty familiar to you. There's not really much in the way that I need to go over in terms of the layout in the pedal, but to kind of very quickly go through and especially touch on some of the inputs and the outputs of it. All the controls on the front here are really easy to understand. You've got all your reverb controls just all in a line right there. All of these options here, which you'll see as I turn that around, that's going to be changing what the actual reverb type is. And then this value button here as well, you're going to change between your presets there. It also has a couple of additional features that I will touch on as well. On the top, we have our usual inputs and outputs of a stereo in, a stereo out, a USB-C, an expression pedal in, which you can control some really cool parameters with the reverbs, and also MIDI functionality as well for anybody who does needs that. And of course, your three buttons down the bottom here, you have an A and a B, which is going to control either your A preset or your B preset, which you can have two that you can very quickly jump between. And if you press both of those or both of those at the same time, that's how you go through your banks. This button on the right as well controls the infinite feature, which is really cool option on the Big Sky, where basically you play a chord and it will just hold it indefinitely pretty much. So I'll even just show you that very quickly just now on this Saturn's preset. See how long that goes on until it diffuses out there as well. That's a particularly big reverb to show that off with, but that's one of the really fun features that I find in the Big Sky MX here, is the use of that infinite sort of sound. Obviously, if you're doing big long ambient sections or anything like that, that'll create a really cool pad underneath it, which you can solo over or you can do anything over it as well. But actually, one of the features that I find that really useful for is particularly if you're playing live. Say you're going in between your different songs, you need to do a bit of tuning or, chat to the crowd or anything like that. You can strum the chord of your next song, hold that. There is actually a feature as well that you can get in and change that to more of a freeze. So rather than you having to press and hold it, you just press it once and it does it. And it just means that there's always a little bit of kind of ambience happening and a little bit of sound, which just a really cool feature that I like about it. One of the main features about the brand new Big Sky MX is actually the dual reverb features that they have included in this. And that is basically what you can do with it is you select your first reverb. And what I'll do is I'll show you exactly what this does. So I'll go to a blank patch. This is a good opportunity for me to show you the global on the home screen here so we can go back. That was the stage setup that was just on the screen there. Press that, we go back to our editing one. So a couple of cool options as well for you to see exactly what preset you're on. So say for example, let's go with the classic, the cloud setting, which the Big Sky is certainly known for. Let's just check. Bit of modulation on that as well. The parameter 1 and 2 knobs here are really interesting as well because they control obviously separate parameters for each of the reverb settings. But within that as well, you can actually adjust what they are doing. So if you do need to, say, adjust, I'll even show you. You can get into the parameter settings just by pressing the value button once there. And you can see there's several different ones, even just for the cloud one here. You're able to set them to whichever one you want. So say, for example, you're maybe not using the low end as much, but you want to control pan, especially if you're doing this in stereo at all, then you have that option. If we go back, let's just see. So this is just our cloud setting, just initially. Roll that ensemble down there, because what I'm going to do now is by pressing the type button here, which this is where, as I said, all the other reverbs are, or how you control your reverb. You notice when I press that, there is a little green indicator that will pop up just on the screen. Hopefully you're able to see that okay. And if you start turning that, you'll notice that you can either, there's several options you can do. You can either have them in parallel, so they're both running exactly the same. You can have one running into two in series, you can have two running into one in series, or you can split it left and right in terms of the output. So if you want, say, one of your reverbs going to one amp and then the other one going to the other, you can do that. There's tons and tons of options, but I'm just going to keep it quite simple and just have them both running in parallel. So I'll select that one there, press this again, you'll notice it will go over the number 2 there. Now what you can do is you can actually turn this and choose exactly what you want. So let's go with the choral option here. Let me select that back again. Just make sure that everything's okay on it. And let's actually, we'll change that to the random setting and actually put the mix up a little bit so you can hear it. So now I have the cloud setting with a choral reverb as well behind it, and this may be absolutely massive and maybe a bit washy, but hey, that's exactly what this pedal's used for, right? Of course, that's a pretty extreme example of the two combinations you can get there. And again, you know, really, really washy, really, really quite big as well. But even if you, say for example, we'll even just go to another blank patch here as well. And say you want something like the magneto there, which essentially is just the delay that has actually been built into this as well. You'll hear just, which you can get in and you can actually change a lot of the other bits about it as well, which, you know, proper timings and all that sort of stuff. But say you want to use that and then you also want the reverb on top of it as well. Let's even go with just the classic sort of plate there. Which is really cool because obviously you kind of have all your delays and stuff in this if you want to as well, especially if you're maybe only using like one delay setting or anything, you majority use a bit more reverb, that's a really, really cool option for you to have the ability with. So if we take a bit of a closer look at the types of reverb that we have in the Big Sky MX, I'm not going to spend too much time on each of the reverbs because in all honesty, there is sort of a ton of options for each of them that you can really get in and you can start manipulating them to how you see fit. But I'll even just see what the kind of default sound on most of them are here and kind of touch on the ones that are a little bit more interesting, because specifically with the Big Sky and the Big Sky MX here, there's some really quite creative sort of sounds in it, which I think are just really, really cool, which I've, used the word cool a lot in this as well, but it's one of the things I find most about the Strymon stuff is the fact that just it can provide this level of creativity and sort of these sort of effects dependent sort of sounds that you can get out of your guitar, which, if you're stuck in a bit of a rut, or even if just you really like effects and what they produce for you, you're going to get a lot of use out of this. So we've already heard the cloud setting here. That's really, really big, and you can get some really quite nice sort of modulation and even a little bit of kind of octave effects on it as well. The shimmer effect here, that is, really, really quite popular as well. Actually, before we go on that, let's just check out a little bit of the cloud by itself. Who needs a synth player, right? Moving over to the shimmer as well. This is obviously something that a lot of people will be quite familiar with shimmer reverb becoming very, very popular in the past bunch of years. I was going to say the last few years, but probably say the last 10 years or so for this one. Obviously, the big thing with shimmer reverbs is the fact that you are able to add a shift in a different tone on top of your reverb here. So let me just set maybe like a perfect fifth above. We'll set like an octave below there as well and make sure that our mix is nice and high so we can hear what it's doing. Quite a short one there as well, so let's put the decay up just to really hear what it's doing. Lower the modulation as well, just so we can properly hear the notes. Maybe one of the cleanest shimmers I've heard, certainly, from a reverb pedal. Me and Aaron were actually chatting just before the start of this video as well, saying that some shimmer reverbs can kind of get in the way, I feel, and like just be a little bit, what was the word that you exactly used as well for it? It was like quite cutting, wasn't it?
I think, like, clears my throat. I think, like, I've heard older shimmers that sound a bit more slicey. Like
That was the word.
Slice through, like, what you're playing, but I think from what I've heard on this, it's kind of supporting what you're playing, like, underneath.
And obviously the fact that you can change a lot of the parameters for that to really, really hone in. Especially you can set this for particular songs if you want like a harmony or something like that really adds as well. So great job, Strymon. We fully expected you to absolutely nail it for this one. Bloom is a really cool setting as well. This is, again, take a drink for every time I say Bloom or whatever, but this is a very kind of like 90s style one that Strymon have said particularly that is quite like bloomy, essentially, is the best way to describe it, and I'll just let you hear it. And I had to sit and just let that like actually just diffuse out as well because it got so bloomy, which is cool. Got so blooming good. The the bloom setting there I think is really really cool. Again, saying it's very very cool. But that I think can really come in handy, especially if you are using like an expression pedal with that, because you can have different points of the song, particularly if you want the reverb to start coming in a lot more and really, really taking over your actual playing. Super, super usable. You heard a little bit of the choral earlier as well when I was mixing that in with the double reverb setting, but even just to let you see with the parameters here, you can change all the vowels as well from an AU, an A, all the way to just an OO if you want to, or a random setting as well, which I'm going to just put that on and it's going to change over. I'll put the mix all the way up for that as well so you can properly hear what it is doing. Okay, maybe a bit more suitable for kind of chordal playing as well, but certainly with the right mix, I'm going like really, really, really wet with a lot of these here as well, just so you can hear exactly what the reverbs are doing. We touched on the Magneto, that's your delay options there as well, which again, you can get in and you can start really, really messing about with. But one of the ones that I really wanted to touch on was the non-linear here, because this is maybe one of the most creative settings on it, which I'll just even let you hear how it kind of comes in just right off the bat here. Again, like that. Diffuse out there.
That one's really, really good. That's like one of my favourite sounds.
This was one of the ones I was talking about in terms of the creativity that you can get from the Big Sky MX. Again, as Aaron just said there as well, that's one of his favourites, and it's certainly one of my favourites in here as well, just because from that immediately kind of gets you thinking more as a composition sort of style thing, as opposed to just being a backup or a guitar effect on top of it, because you can set it in certain ways. You know, you can get in there, you can, you know, change the ramp, you can reverse it, you can put like a gate on it as well. As you know, gated reverb is a very big kind of 80s sort of vibe, but that's me change that just to the, what did I change that to? Reverse there. And again, through the, you know, like getting in and really looking at the parameters and stuff like that as well, you know, you could see that even the way that it chops up can be changed. Pressing that, let's even just see what that does. We're almost getting into more kind of synth territory there as well, you know, a bit of a kind of an arpeggio sort of vibe to it, which is just, it's so inspiring. That's kind of the, again, one of the things that I really, really, really just can't stress enough about this is just that there's some of the settings on here that just really just give you the most sort of options for not only creating cool guitar parts, but also, as I said, kind of like inspiring you to create a bit more kind of musically sort of parts. That makes a lot of sense there. So if I was to go super in depth with all the reverbs built into this, I think we would be here for a good 3 hours or something. And it would be a lovely 3 hours of amazing guitar sounds, but I'm going to very, very quickly speed run through the last few here because there's the last one I want to touch on is one of the sort of more impressive ones that Strymon have implemented into the Big Sky MX. So the kind of latter side of the circle of presets here are all your pretty standard sort of reverbs as you would expect from a really good reverb pedal. So room, hall, chamber, plate, spring, all your sort of, you know, standard ones that we all know and love. But of course, within there, you can get in and you can start changing a lot of the parameters really, really easily. And obviously adding like modulations and even sort of octave stuff as well. So the room one is going to be relatively quite small. Hall there, obviously we're going to start getting a little bit bigger with it as well. This is the chamber. Plate here as well, which again you can change the size of that. Let's just make sure it's not too washy there as well. And then of course spring also, which again you can change the dwell of that, which is really, really good. You can also, there's another super cool option as well that I quite liked on this one. So you can change the number of springs that you're actually getting as well. So if you want that more kind of like squashy sort of wet spring sound on it, you can get that. So it's not all full of completely, you know, huge sounding washy reverbs as well. There's a lot of subtleties in there, which just, it's going to be your one-stop shop for reverbs essentially. You kind of wouldn't really need anything else after this, especially with the last option that I want to talk about, and this is one of the newer ones that they put into the Big Sky here, and this is the impulse option. Now essentially what this is, to make it as simple as possible, is it's a bunch of custom IRs that Strymon have loaded into the Big Sky MX, which are based on actual spaces. So if I click in to the value button there and go into the parameters, go to impulse, there's a list in here going from, you know, several different things, smaller up to big, up to sort of cathedral styles and all that sort of stuff, which is really quite an awesome feature that I think. So we'll go, let's click on Reactor Hall here. Let's just see exactly what this guy's doing. Make sure my mix is quite high. Check out my other parameters and make sure everything's all good on them as well. Go and check another one out as well here. Let's check out the Coral Cave. see what this guy's sounding like as well. Now, Strymon do give you the ability to load in different IRs for that as well with the companion app that actually does come with the Big Sky, and that's just used by obviously using the USB-C, plugging that into your computer. I imagine that people will be able to, or maybe Strymon or whoever's using, you know, kind of the Impulse IR technology for this as well, you'll be able to download different sort of room sizings, and particularly probably some famous places around about the world as well, which I think we'd all love to go into a big hall with a guitar amplifier and get that big, nice, natural reverb, but sometimes that's just not an option, so this, I think, is absolutely the next best thing. So I'm going to wrap it up there, because as I said, I'd be here for another 3 hours if I was really diving in deep with all the options with the Big Sky MX here. I think it's just such a unique sort of pedal in the sense that not only are you getting really, really cool sort of companion sounds for your guitar, you know, I think a lot of people really like using reverb, especially with any lead part, clean parts, all that sort of stuff. But what's really, really quite inspiring about this, as I touched on, is just the sort of musicality of some of the options in this pedal. By all means, I don't think anybody should be going out to buy a pedal to, you know, expect songs to come out of it, but it's certainly maybe one of the best catalysts that I've seen for that sort of creativity in a long time, even just with that non-linear setting there that I touched on. You set that to a kind of choppy rhythm or anything like that, you put a bass and a beat over that, and then that's you pretty much got kind of the blueprint of a song. Which again, if you're just looking for some of the best reverbs as well, and you maybe don't want it to be completely up the front, there's loads and loads of options in here as well. And I think certainly for anybody who's looking for like the most sort of high-end options when it comes to reverbs, Strymon I think are still sitting pretty firmly up at the top with a few other companies as well. But let me know what you think about the brand new Big Sky MX down in the comments below. Are you excited to try this out? Is there any particular settings that you're really, really looking forward to? Is that double reverb thing exciting as well? You know, let us know down in the comments. And while you're there, give us a like and a subscribe, because it is really helpful for the channel. But until next time, I've been Kieran, and this has been a very, very quick look at the Strymon Big Sky MX. Have a great day.